I'm Matthew Woods, host of Leading Out of the Woods, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you are listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
We are here, myself, Josh, and Will, right? That's your name?
Yeah, sometimes. Some friends people will call me that.
Some friends people? What do other friends and people call you? What are your other aliases, Will? Please tell us.
On Tuesdays, I go to my local central market and do a lot of my grocery shopping. And you get to know the people who do the vending and such.
Yeah.
But I've now been doing it for like 3 months, and I still don't know everyone's names, and I don't ask. I'm a little introverted that way. So this morning, the one lady looks at my credit card, and she goes, Will? Or William? Or Bill? And I was like, ugh, never Bill. Where's the B come from? Huh? She's like, yeah, right? Like, who's calling you Billiam? And I was like, yeah, only my one ex-girlfriend.
Wait, really?
Yeah, that's the only person who's ever called me Billiam. So
yeah,
it's fine.
She was crazy.
All respect, if she ever hears this, all respect. It was funny, no worries. But William, that's me. Anyways, we're here at the Pi Tech Podcast.
At it is a podcast. Yes, we are here for another week of the opening AI series.
We need more AI sound effects. Clearly,
yeah, we do. We
have
need
not
to
learned
do some more post editing to add some sound effects. Anyway, yes, it is another week of the opening AI series, and this week we have another guest. Guests.
First time ever having more than one guest at one time? No, we did Justin and Robin together.
Yeah, Justin and Robin joined us.
Yeah,
first time,
okay.
But first time having two guests at one time in one room together in their own custom built studio.
Podcast pod.
Yeah, that was a thing. Yes, we are joined this week by MySchoolAI, specifically Steve Howse and Harry Stiles.
As soon as I saw you like breathing in, holding, and gonna say, I was like, oh, sing a song, and then I was like, I don't know a single One Direction song.
Yeah. So, did you also know that the member of One Direction known as Harry Stiles runs MySchoolAI? If you did, then that was false information that I just gave you 5 seconds ago.
Fake news.
Harry Stiles. This is a different Harry Stiles, but personally, Will and I like him better. You know, I don't know. Yeah. We don't know the other Harry Stiles, but
he's a good chap.
Yeah, he's a good chap. Anyway, they're joining us this week to talk about their program, MySchoolAI. They are doing some pretty sweet stuff with reconfiguring basically ChatGPT and OpenAI to assist teachers, and they've got quite a dream for what it could look like in the future. And so, honestly, Will and I learned a ton on this episode. Both Steve and Harry are definitely way more involved in setting up AI and doing some of the work that they do in AI than we are. And so they had a lot to teach us. A lot of cool conversations with the two of these guys. And I'm really excited for you guys to hear what they have to share and what MySchoolAI is doing.
I'd also have to say, this might be unintentionally our first cross podcast experience.
Yeah, we didn't know they were going to be doing a podcast as well.
That anybody else is, but they have a podcast called Why AI. It's the 3 letters Why AI, available on Spotify and some of the others. Make sure you check that out if you want to go deep dive into the AI. I listened to one of their episodes today. It's the most recent one in current time, but that's going to be irrelevant whenever this episode comes out. But it was very interesting. Definitely check their podcast out and enjoy that round. If you're going to go deep into what AI is doing, what it's possible doing, this MySchoolAI tool actually really catches my attention for making the content creation easier for teachers. Reduce time to give you more time to refine it, to improve it, to curate the best resources for your students. I'm excited. This is really awesome conversation. I want to, I don't know. I didn't mean to like take your thunder there and just throw us in, but I want to jump on this.
Well, that was a little rude, but it's
I'm sorry. My bad, buddy.
Can I'll do it.
Go ahead.
Transition. What Will said. Okay, here we go. MySchoolAI.
Right, folks, we are kicking it off with MySchoolAI. Josh and I are very excited to host today both Steve Howse, the director of MySchoolAI, and Harry Stiles, the one and only musician. No, wait. Wrong. I had to record the joke. I'm sorry, Harry.
Yeah, you can't have that name and not make that joke.
Expected.
How are you both doing today?
Yeah, fantastic. Great, thank you. Yeah, brilliant.
It is a bit of a time difference for us, right? So you're coming into your evening?
Yeah. 5, just gone 5, I believe.
All right.
Yeah.
And
okay.
No pints or anything in sight. I'm
not yet.
I'm amazed. They're like, could you finish this recording, please? Got a place to be. I'm going to kick it right off with a little bit of background. So we are just getting introduced to you folks. We are a little familiar with MySchoolAI, but really curious to hear about what MySchoolAI is, how it came to be, what you two are doing for the product.
Brilliant. So we'll give you a little bit of background then. So MySchoolAI really kicked off sort of December time, January, when all the new changes came out with, your chat GPT and all those things came to the front.
Yep.
Loads of teachers just loads of people we knew were like, we were sort of saying, have you seen chat GPT? And they were like, oh yeah, but I don't necessarily know how to use it, or when I use it I don't really get what I want from it and so on. So we were like, the first thing we'll do is we basically built a fairly quick front end to, I guess, the OpenAI API, and it sort of wraps up prompts into so it wraps up prompts so they don't have to think about them, if you like. So it's like if you want to make a lesson plan, rather than having to, people go, oh, I made a lesson plan, but it's not really right because I teach year, and well, the years are going to be different on it, but I teach 8-year-olds. Know what I mean? I teach 8-year-olds. You know what I mean? So I'm like, yeah, but did you tell it you want to teach it to an 8-year-old? And they were like, right. Oh, no, I didn't think about that. What I mean? I know it sounds stupid, but it's like, if you say, oh, I'm going to do, fractions, that's a big topic, isn't it? You know what I mean? You could make 100 different lesson plans on fractions that range from something that you needed to create.
It's like spitting out something for an accountant.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah, so that's it. So we were sort of like, well, you need to ask the age, and then we were like, why aren't you asking it to give you some differentiated questions and things like that? Do you know what I mean? So we sort of put all that into the prompts, and people found that really useful. So that was where it kind of really started. And people were saying, we basically just went out for suggestions, and we're like, well, what else do you want to know? You know what I mean? Kind of, what else would you like to do? And people were like, well, assembly making, or writing reports for students, all those sorts of things were sort of suggested to us. So we basically created some tools that allow people to log on and then make use the OpenAI background to create those pieces of information, basically. And then we looked into the image creation and all that kind of stuff, because again, that's the same thing. It's like, you've got to know that you've got to go and log into Stable Diffusion, make an account, what you've got to prompt it with, whereas we went into the idea of saying, right, okay, so how can we deal with that? So now when you write, if you want a bowl of pasta as a picture for a cooking lesson in hours, and you type, I want a bowl of pasta, if you put that into Stable Diffusion, it will give you a pretty bland image. Whereas what our system does is it tells ChatGPT to liven up the prompt. You see what I mean, kind of thing. Wow. So ChatGPT livens up the prompt, and then it then makes a better prompt for Stable Diffusion. So it's things like that. It's just like little tricks that are there to help teachers get better use out of those large language model tools. That's our stage 1. We're now on stage 2, and I think this is really probably quite important that we touched on this. So our real aim, that I guess in a way that stuff was easy, in inverted commas.
Well, I'd love to hang out with you guys. That's easy.
You and I have a very different definition of easy.
But what we're really trying to do at the moment, we're going through a lot of people working on this in our company, is to make a kind of a tutor. I don't really want to use the word tutor. We're still trying to work out what we should call it, because like ChatGPT, as you know, is great for students if they know the question they want to ask. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So like, if you know, I need you to explain to me, who was King of England in 1520 or something, it'll tell you, you know what I mean? It'll tell you about all the information about it, fact. You know what I mean? Yeah, the facts, and it'll tell you, and you can say, and basically ask anything, it'll do a really good job of explaining it, but you've got to know what you don't know, if that makes sense. And I think that's it. And there's lots of places trying to do this. So the idea of like a tutor is definitely out there. But having been a teacher, I was a teacher for, I should say I was a teacher for 7 years. And I was a physics teacher as well, so really, really exciting. But basically, you know, when you get like students, you say, oh, I'm going to do like a revision session. And if you come, we'll do a one-to-one session. And you'd say, come with all your questions. And you turn up and they go, you say, what do you want to know? They go, physics, you know what I mean? I think that's the
test.
Yeah, what's on the test, exactly. So the point is that all these ideas like the ChatGPT being a tutor and all that is brilliant, but I just think that only works when you've got students that know, like, you know, if I'm at university and I'm trying to revise for a test and I need to learn this topic, then it's perfect. Do you know what I mean? Or as close to perfect as it's going to get for giving you like a little private lesson, isn't it? But if you're a 12-year-old or a 15-year-old and you're just like, oh, I've got to do this maths test, it's like you're not really knowing what you've got to know. So we're our real focus at the moment is building a student teaching assistant, if that makes sense, is how I'd like to put it. So that's where we're focusing all our energy on at the moment. So even though we have all those fantastic tools that we think are great for teachers, and genuinely they are being used, and we just think they're really good tools for saving time. Our real main focus, our core aim at the moment, is building this teaching assistant for student, I think is how I'd put it, if that makes sense.
That's great.
That's really interesting. Yeah. I'm seeing a common theme between where you are now and what you're trying to do, which is that you're kind of filling a middleman position to help kind of the user not have to think as hard about how they're using AI, but not have to be, you know, like Will and I follow a bunch of people on Twitter that are constantly just dropping pages of like, this is how you can be an expert at AI and make $1 million in 2 days, you know? You're like, okay, whatever.
Why is it so easy?
But like the prompt writing and the way to interact is becoming in of itself a skill. And I think what's interesting is you're kind of trying to fill that gap. Yeah. It seems like for students and teachers, so that they don't have to know all of that on their own. Type of thing.
Yeah. And I'm getting this sense as well, like I'm looking at the platform, I'm seeing very teacher-centric features. Report assistant, lesson planner. Like I'm not imagining a student coming in here and use those, but you're trying to take these tools, which are teacher-centric, and get to something that's going to let the students work on it too. Like you want the 100%. Students in the platform.
The way, just to give you a little bit of, I think it's important, the products that we currently provide to school, we provide a lot of products around data analysis, assessment, things like that. And so, but what we always offer is a whole package. So that's like all the students will sign in, all the teachers will sign in, and then, you know, like if a student does an assessment and the teacher can go on and see the assessment, you know what I mean, that kind of thing. So it's like a kind of a coordinated approach. So we're taking that approach. So, you know, with like all the tech stuff, like syncing with the school's data system and all that kind of thing that we already do. And well, we do. That's what we kind of do for our tools. So, like, the idea is that we'll pull all that information through, and then the student will then be able to carry out their learning on there. Not all of their learning. Let's just be going back to the discussion earlier. Like, you know, we're not trying to take the teacher out of the situation. That's not the idea. Right. This ChatGPT can give you loads of great information, do loads of stuff like that, remember loads of things, obviously, that the teacher that maybe does that job better than the teacher, because it can obviously remember infinite amount of things, or maybe not infinite, but close to infinite. Whereas but what it can't do, obviously, is like boost your confidence or motivate you or stuff like that, particularly. You know what I mean? It doesn't really have those skills. Or at the moment, it doesn't anyway. You know what I mean?
It'll try.
Yeah,
it might not be useful.
But you know what I mean? You know, so
exactly.
And the reality at the moment is we're just really excited because we're like, I feel like we're at like day one with AI. Really, like I know it's been around for a little bit, but realistically, I'd relate it to kind of like we're at like the first iPhone release. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if you've ever watched that. Have you ever watched that Steve Jobs video where he's presenting the and he scrolls and everyone goes, "Oh wow!" like it's the most amazing thing ever. And then
used a finger.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we're probably at that stage, and that was 2007, and when we're 2035, I think we'll be looking back at 2023 and be like, as if we were amazed by that, you know. I mean, it's just like the most basic part of it all. So,
and OpenAI wasn't even wearing a turtleneck.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's it. Well, and I think that we're we're definitely at like that early stage. So we're just trying to get ourselves immersed in it really, and really just try and get something that. So that's why we started with all those tools for teachers, because we thought they were kind of like I say, the sort of the easiest thing we could do. But then now, what we're really focusing on is making a tool that how to describe it. So it explains it. We're sort of building a massive knowledge bank of content, if that makes sense. And then we're trying to, so students log on and then they will like answer some, it'll basically prompt them with questions. Because I've sort of trying to think about when I was a tutor, because obviously I taught classes of 30, but I'd obviously do one-on-one sessions and stuff like that. And you think, what do you do? Well, the first thing is you ask the student questions, don't you? That's how you find out what they don't know. You can't really sort of say to them, what don't you know? You have to say, answer this question. If you get it right, we'll jump on and do the next thing. Answer this question. If you get it wrong, we'll work on that topic. And that's kind of how this works. So it will sort of ask the student, it'll give them little explanations, ask them questions, all of this based off an AI kind of generation, and it will ask them questions, and it will sort of mark those questions, because that's the most impressive thing for me, is the fact that it can mark your work. Do you see what I mean? So we've always, like, there's loads of tools, I'm sure you'll be familiar with, like there's tools out there that are good for things like maths, where it's like simplify 15 over 45 and the answer's a third. The answer's always a third. I suppose you could write a third like in a fraction, or write it as a word, but other than that, it can pretty much identify. But
even that you could program in.
Exactly.
ChatGPT can take variable response.
Yeah, exactly.
It just needs to know all the possible responses.
Yeah, that's it. So it now it's kind of like if you've got the question of sort of you could go really, you could say, how was Churchill feeling about the war at the start of the war? And that would be a good history question. And someone could actually give an answer to that. And ChatGPT could say, yeah, you're on the right lines there, or no, you clearly have no understanding of who Churchill was, or anything like that. And it can then, and that's kind of like the point. And what that means is that you can imagine we have this big knowledge map in the background that's kind of like empty. And then as the student starts to answer questions, it builds that up like it's their brain. So it kind of, it absorbs. So as they're answering a question, it's like, oh, you know that, you understand. So that might be you understand how to provide a critical argument, or it might be that you understand how to rearrange equations, or it might be like you understand about the kidney or something.
It can grow with them as they are growing.
Exactly. Yeah. And if you imagine you're a tutor and you've got a teacher, and you've got there's two things here. One, you come back to that tutoring that child a week later, and you're like, where were we up to? I can't remember. You might look at your notes and be like, we're up to here or whatever, but you don't. Whereas this thing can be like, well, 6 weeks ago we did rearranging equations, and tomorrow we're going to learn about the nephron in the kidney or something. You know what I mean? And we know all of the different this, and it can know, oh, well, we're up to here, and then we're up to, and so it can kind of, as the student works with it will get a picture of where they're up to, and that's the real vision, that it'll understand that. If that makes sense. And then the other side of that is when it can be really, really personal. So when you've got a class of 30 students and you're going to teach Pythagoras theorem, like 5 of the students over there understand square numbers, those 5 don't. This 5 understands square roots, those don't. These understand rearranged equations, they don't. This person hasn't listened to a maths lesson for the last 4 years. You know what I mean? It's like everyone there in that class. Everyone there in that class has different needs, don't they? So you've really got the ability to, with this, is that you could, those 5, it will pick up that they don't understand that, and the other 5 will pick up so on. And so that's a real, like you've used it, haven't you, to sort of like as a test base, just looking at different things. And, and it can like. Yeah.
Has it assessed where Harry is? Like, what year are you
at?
Harry?
What category of student were you that we just labeled? That's the real question.
But yeah, no, it does just sort of, work with you essentially, doesn't it? And
in small steps, it takes you. The real challenge, the first challenge is obviously getting the AI to do the technical task, but the real challenge has become really digging down into the psychology of learning, like what how do I actually learn that topic, or how do I teach that topic? I mean, what are the processes for those? A math skill is very different to learning about a period in history. You know what I mean? Obviously, we sort of, that sounds really obvious, but when you sort of have to try and like drill down, how do you actually make a tool that can do both of those things is quite, well, it's been quite complicated. That's been one of the big difficult tasks.
The fact that you settle in on the psychology of learning is so important, because we even just had a recent interview, episode 104, with Mark Beggart of Fabulingua, where he's talking about approaching language learning from a
Yeah.
psychological standpoint, like how the mind actually acquires language. And that's launched their entire platform, because
Yeah.
they're trying to approach it not just
Yeah.
from like, let's do words over and over
Yeah.
and over, but like, let's approach words in a new way from a narrative perspective of a comprehensible inputs. And
Yeah.
it makes sense when you approach it from the psychology.
Yeah.
I'm even now thinking of like, oh my gosh, imagine if Fabulingua had the AI component to language generation, where you could talk or something in other languages.
Well, that's exactly one of the things we're looking at. So, like French and Spanish and German are the most common ones in UK schools, but obviously we're going to work with schools everywhere. But the point being that I just think that like I say, we're at day one, we're going to work towards this, but there's absolutely the possibility there to learn languages in a different way, and that's a bit like I learned French at school, learned very little French. I then went and lived in France for a year, worked in France, and then could now speak French. And the difference in the ability to, I'm not suggesting I'm like absolutely fluent, but I taught kids and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So I was decent enough to be able to talk. So you know what I mean? Like you learn that immersive experience with languages is really important. And I can really imagine this like moving forward into like, you know, you put a headset on and you're having a discussion with, especially with the, like, have you looked into like Whisper, you know, OpenAI's Whisper? I don't know if you've seen much about that, but that's their kind of,
I've heard of it a little bit.
That's their speech to text. So like, it's unbelievable. Like, I test it out by like mumbling into it as badly as I can, and it still picks up, you know, what you're trying to say. And I think there's a real thing there of being able to, you know, have a conversation, immerse yourself in it. You know what I mean? Put your headset. You can imagine classes putting a headset on it, and you know, with as I say, it's day one. We're thinking long term. At the moment, this is just quite a plain. You log in, it texts, it gives you information in text. You're reading it, and we're working. And we're currently working on the. You know, by the time we're you know, a couple of months, we'll be looking at how it speaks to it and how it, you know, how it speaks back to you. We're definitely in that process. But I can sort of see, you know, 8 years time, 5 years time, you know, VR headset on, you know what I mean? You're in a room, it does this, you know, all of those sorts of things. Definitely see it going, you know, all over the place with that, because I think there's just so much opportunity to create that immersive experience. But like languages, I think it's going to be brilliant for, because I don't know if you've used ChatGPT for it, but we work with Welsh schools where in one of our products, and so we can now. Sometimes we'll just like, we want to translate all our website into Welsh, so we just use ChatGPT because it does it perfectly.
Wow.
Whereas Google Translate, that's the thing. It's like, obviously with it being a large language model, it's not working in the, like Google Translate is literally translating the words, and obviously it has different techniques built into it to not make mistakes, or not make, you know, where is the word Polish and where is it Polish, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? It has things built in to deal with that. Whereas a large language model, if it can write perfect English, it can write perfect Welsh, it can write perfect French.
It just
you know
needs
what I mean?
to have the sample.
As long as it's built. As long as it's gone through that. So the reality is like you're suddenly in a very different level of translation. And I've really noticed that when we use it for, well, when we used it for that Welsh stuff, it was like we were showing it to schools that schools that speak Welsh, and I was saying, yeah, that's fine. You know what I mean? Whereas before we'd use a bit of Google Translate, and they'd be like, yeah, it's not quite right because you've picked up.
Thanks for
like,
trying.
Yeah. Well, the word it's like because the word tracking, to track data. You know, you track a student. In Welsh, you have to track a student, which is like, I believe this is correct, to track a student, like to track their data, or to track them as in to follow them around. So you don't want to use the wrong one, you know what I mean? Kind of thing.
Goes from like a normal sentence to very creepy.
Exactly.
Very quickly.
There are privacy concerns with both.
That's it. So but yeah, that's our sort of like a fairly foggy version of our vision, if you like. As you can tell, it's not very nailed down, mainly because we're just enjoying the fact that it's all new. You know what I mean? There's loads for us to look into.
Well, and there's so much there. Like I'm really excited about and you're not as foggy as you think you are. So positive. I think I'm tracking with where you're going. What I really like, I think the direction of what you guys are trying to do is, how do we look at this AI and find areas where like this would be a ton of work for a human to do for an entire class? Like, how do we find these spaces, like even the custom path and custom learning stuff, like everybody's tried to do that in different ways pre-AI. I mean, the amount of learning management systems that are like, we gave you your custom path, and you're like, did you?
Yeah.
No. Like, I think
You
that's,
didn't.
I think that's a path, but like you're missing a bridge or two. I don't know if you like you think so. It's really cool is this idea of just like what it would look like to have an assistant really in there, that there's just what AI does well is capture so much information and then kind of react and build off of that. There's a lot of power to that if that could get working and moving, where like it's not replacing a teacher. Really what it is it's now this tool that allows a teacher to do what we've been wanting to do, which is knowing that different students need different solutions, even in a singular class. So nobody's going to learn something exactly the same way or be at the exact same place. I just think that's really cool. I like
the irony,
that idea.
The irony of AI and quote unquote robots being involved in teaching is it has the opportunity to make it more human. Right? Like if we as humans need individualization, that power of the tool could more humanize the teaching process by giving the teacher the opportunity to leverage the tool to reach every student in the room. I've been teaching martial arts and language and ed tech and a bunch of things for a very long time in my life. I've always loved teaching. I've had a teacher's heart, and I've always struggled with that room of 30 people in front of me, 35, 40 people. I love a class of 10. Even that is still hard, but reaching that many people is just, it's impossible to do a consistent level of reach, if you will. And that's where I think these kinds of tools will definitely take us further. It's sounding like a little bit of a pivot. Your audience right now is like UK. You're established in your area, your networks. You're staying at the younger levels. Is that the goal long term? Is it to be eventually K to higher ed? What are we thinking?
I think I've got 2 kids who are 9, and they're using it, and they it's working for them. So that, and
awesome.
like it depends, because it does things like we're still, I keep saying this, we're still at day 1. We're looking at loads of different ways to communicate with people. But realistically, if the program will speak to you and you can speak back to it, and ChatGPT is very good at coming up with if you say to it, explain, like I was doing yesterday, explain how an AC generator works in a story. You know what I mean? It sounds so stupid, but in like 3 seconds, it'll come up with a really clever story around how
Did it work?
Yeah. It was saying so it was telling me about someone going on their bike for a cycle, and they had a radio, and the radio kept dipping out, so they connected it up to a magnet in the wheels, and that charged the kit. It was just like, it came up with it straight away.
ChatGPT MacGyver? Was there bubblegum involved?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it was like, things like that are. So I don't really think there's any real, I think you can go quite young, and I think you can go, obviously you can go really technical at a much older age. And I think the main thing that we're working at the moment is trying to identify how each bit of knowledge should be, it needs to be learnt, if that makes sense. And that's where we're kind of really focusing on, because I think that's really important when it comes to, especially at the higher end, teaching, like teaching a really complex mathematical equation and teaching about a Shakespeare sonnet are quite different, aren't they? In terms of what they've got, how they're taught. So or how they're learned is maybe more important. And so that's why we're really focusing on identifying how that's going to work, if that makes sense, within the system, and how it's going to differentiate between those two aspects. But that's going. I don't think we see massive limit to one level or the other end. Really, it's just, where do we want to focus, really? And
I suppose location wise as well, there's not really any cap on that.
No, there isn't. We work with UK schools. We work with a few international schools in various parts of the world. But there's no real. The good thing about this is there's no real sort of system for it to fit within, because obviously, I know that different schools have different countries have different curriculums, but generally you're still covering the same sort of base core. At least at the core, you're still covering the same curriculum. You know what I mean? And that's where we're sort of really why it's quite widespread. Really, it doesn't really have a focus. And from the teacher tools, the point at how it is at the moment, there's hundreds of, well, even thousands of people all over using it. You know what I mean, from different countries. So from anywhere really.
Okay, very cool. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, once you get the groundwork put together, the base of AI is, if you're doing it well, it should be able to adapt across multiple different levels. So
Absolutely.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Although here in the U.S., 2 + 2 = like 7, so I don't know if that'll matter.
If you've seen our political system,
we that's
okay,
different
left turn.
podcast. Left turn. Different podcast. Anyway, as it is now, just so for our listeners hearing it, how could a teacher right now get a hold of MySchoolAI if they wanted to use it or they wanted to look into it?
Yeah, so if they want to get hold of it now, you just go to MySchoolAI.com and then you put in, you can just sign up basically at the thing, and we have like early entry code. So because we like people to sort of pass it around, so it's the early entry code is MSA Early Bird. So that's like MySchoolAI. So MSA Early Bird. And that'll give you access straight into it, if that makes sense. It's mainly because we want to keep it teacher focused. We don't want it just like thousands of people spamming it, you know what I mean, into it. So it's like we're trying to just keep it on, trying to just put that sort of block things, obviously blocks robots and things like that out of it, and it just keeps it down to, you know, people that really actually want to use it. Because obviously like that's really useful, because when people have signed up, we're asking people for like feedback and things like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, not directly, but if they want to give us it, then that's useful.
We're on Twitter, Instagram as well, under the same handle. So if anybody wants to check it out, check it out through there.
So something we're currently, me and Harry are just starting out right now, is our own actual podcast on teaching and AI. So if we can plug that a little bit, we've got go on,
it's YAI. It's called YAI. So it's Y hyphen AI ? All capitals. Very new. We've just started off. I think we've just recorded the first few episodes.
That's what the sound box is for.
That's it. So we're still it's going good. We're just as you do, sort of finding our feet with it and whatnot. But it's
we're still doing that too.
Good.
This is only episode 100 something.
That's
very cool.
Well, we're just finding we're all, like you say, but we're having loads of conversations about it. You're thinking, why aren't we recording? Because every day everyone's like, what's this new tool? Is this new thing? And I think at the moment, like there was an article out this morning that was talking about schools being bewildered by AI, and I think there's a legitimate thing there where it's just so, like, it's coming at us so fast, isn't it? There's so many, every iteration that's released is like 10 times better than the previous one, and there's this tool and that tool, and people are getting a bit, it's difficult, isn't it? It's sort of it to keep on top of if it's not like your main job.
I think it's also quite for people to listen to it and hear other people talk about how it is relatively daunting how fast it's moving. Is also it's
even a conversation like this one, we've been pretty low level. We haven't gotten too technical. We've said the words large language model. We've used ChatGPT, a brand that people like. Some of these conversations get into the weeds quickly. You mentioned, I heard at the beginning, like, I know what you're doing to make the APIs and make the front end so it works. Like, I understand the stuff that's happening back there, but like these conversations, we try, at least this 5-episode series, we're trying to make sure that we've taken time in the first episode. This is not the first episode. But the first episode is setting some of the vocabulary for folks. Because some of these conversations need to get technical if we want to envision what's possible. But this is like, hey, how do we get your report assistant or your trip organizer or your lesson planner in the hands of teachers? That is our goal. When we're trying to promote something like your tool. Like, four of us get together for a pint. Let's just talk shop all night. But, getting MySchoolAI out there is about making sure people understand what it's possible.
And I think once people have signed up for that tool, we'll be going out once this tutor thing's ready, which is we're talking next few weeks. We'll be looking for schools that want to actually get that going. Again, it's in its first iteration. Get that out there. That we want schools that are keen to use it first. That really. People that really believe in it, if you like, to get out there and get in. So we have like quite a few schools lined up, but we're always looking for more schools. So if it's something that people are interested in, then if you just go to MySchoolAI.com and click on tutor, you can register there to be a to be a starter school or something like that. That's on
awesome.
the main website.
Top center of the page.
That's it. That's it. Yeah. So if people want to,
awesome.
yeah, because that's the way it's going to develop is from people that really want to see that technology grow and, like you say, use it alongside their teaching and stuff like that. And that will really, that's what we're looking for from people. That makes sense.
You've already answered our fourth and last question.
Yeah.
Hey,
I feel like
tons of tools here.
Yeah.
What else is coming?
I feel like most of the conversation was pretty much like, here's what we do, and then also here's the dream of what the future of my
early stages.
Cool. Now I'm gonna pivot for one last question, because while we have you here, I'm curious. I want to get your guys' initial thoughts as somebody looking to do an AI podcast. The one thing we've been trying to ask a bunch of people is, like, if you could pick one thing, what do you think the next big thing for, obviously the tutor and things like that, but the next big thing for AI that is going to probably kind of shake people a little bit, or surprise people it's coming? Do you have any kind of predictions?
Do predictions now so we can all be
wrong
later.
Yeah. We'll be wrong in 30 minutes. Like, there will be a release that will make us wrong in 30 minutes, but we'll be fine for at least 30 minutes.
For me, it's hard to say. It's one of those things where I think that there's going to be a massive race to find the best, like, personal assistant, and by that I mean, like, a bit like Iron Man. He talks to I can't remember his personal assistant's got a name. Charles. I think that there's. At the moment, all of these tools are like, oh, ChatGPT will make me this great thing, and then I'll copy and paste it into my document, or MySchoolAI will do it, and I'll copy and paste it into my document, or I'll get the email written there and then move it to here. Whereas at some point, someone, whether it's Microsoft, whether it's Google, whether it's someone else, will, I think, put these into a whole system where you sit and kind of just talk to your computer. You know what I mean? So you're like, oh, I need to send it, because at the moment you can't really go, I need to send an email to whoever, can you write me it? Yeah, it needs to cover these 3 bullet points. Oh, I've written it, here you go. A bit like Siri, but just 50 times, a million times better. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. Yeah. I think that's where I think that will be the big shake-up, because it'll, like, whether you have devices almost without keyboards in maybe 5-10 years time, something like that. You know what I mean? And you just literally, like, you bet, or it's like an iPad where you can load the keyboard, but the idea of using the keyboard is just like, what, you know what I mean?
Why would you have a keyboard?
Yeah, exactly that. And I think like that's there's always been that stage, hasn't it? It's like, I can remember, like, it's still a situation for me. Like, my parents don't, like, they do use Google and they will search things, but they don't use it like how, like, if I have any problem anywhere and anything, I will just Google it. That's like, it's like, I can remember they said to me something like the window, one of my windows, the windows keep coming down on my car. You know what I mean? And I was like, have you Googled it? And they were like, how would I Google one of my windows? I was like, just do my windows keep coming down on my car. You know what I mean? Let me hit Google.
Honda Civic 2009.
Exactly. And I think that's quite a, how, like, it's like as you get used to these things, and especially as the next generation almost come through and all of that kind of thing, and it'll just be like, I can imagine my kids being like, oh yeah, they used to use these keyboard things, you know what I mean? Like, and just being like,
what was that?
Yeah, exactly.
What is this?
Exactly.
Did you hit me with it?
Yeah. That's it. I can see. I can sort of see that for me is like the big. I'm not saying it's the next big thing that will come out and shock us, because I think there'll be other things, but I just think that's the other thing. I've got a couple of others, actually.
I was just going to reiterate just one of the sort of on what you said. I think we had a brief discussion about that personal assistant thing, like the concept of that, just the idea of something, just quite easily saying to the personal assistant, how, in whatever format it may be, just book me a restaurant tonight, because it's lived with you essentially for that long. It knows what you're gonna like. Just like, if you were to say to your friend, for example, book me a restaurant, they're not gonna,
they're probably going to get you it right.
Probably going to get it right within some margin, and just having that just so readily available is, mind-boggling if and when it comes to fruition.
Because we were talking, have you used the ChatGPT plugins much? Have you had much play around with those?
I've used them a little bit,
and they're quite tedious, aren't they? We were saying how they're cool, but you'd still Google it.
They're a bit long.
Like, you have, like, is it the kayak one? Is it where you can book places, and you'd still just Google it, and that's how you'd book it. But it's the start, isn't it? And at some point it won't be like that. You just be like, oh yeah, I'll just speak to it for like 2 seconds.
Well, I mean, just thinking through that procedure, right? Book me a place tonight. Okay. it's just got to search and reference anything it knows of what you like to eat, places you've been. It could do that from geo, but then it's got to actually get it contact information. It's got to generate a voice, or go if it's got a like Resi or something, it can go through a website and book it for you. But if it has to call on your behalf, it has to create a voice, write a script, have the, and then it has to. I'm just like,
But it probably,
I don't like this world.
But we're not that far. We're not that. It's a good point. We're not necessarily that far off from that. I mean, the AI we have access to right now, and the stuff we're working with, is a little bit farther. But I mean, we know that from papers and things that they're working on other AI, on OpenAI, they got it to get a TaskRabbit to book to do something. Like you know, like we're not. It's not that crazy to think that would be the next step.
I just one other. I think one other big thing is at the moment, obviously, have this unbelievable image generation. You know, Midjourney or Stable Diffusion or all those. And at the moment, it's still like you can't really quite do it with video, mainly because of just the computing power that's required to do it. But I think that will be like obviously you do have these deep fakes and stuff like that. But I think there is the next 2 or 3 years, you will just see that happening where you can just say, like we're excited about it because I think we could say to an AI, oh, I want to really learn about the geography of glaciers. Make me a video on it that's relevant for a 9-year-old to learn about glaciers in the thing. You know what I mean? Like I could see something like that, but there's also obviously loads of sides to that. And I think things like that will just fly through as the power gets, as NVIDIA gets richer and richer with all its GPUs.
Well, that's I don't know. Well, and that and tied with, I don't know if anybody, Will and I haven't even talked about this yet, but the Apple developer stuff that was dropped yesterday of some of the like headset directions they're going, and the way NVIDIA is looking for AI integration and some of that. It's crazy. Some of the, if just listeners, you can go check this out too, but I don't know if both Steve, you and Harry have checked out Corridor Crew. I talk about them all the time. They do like different stuff for video. They actually were using AI to do like live anime. They ended up they turned themselves into an anime. So they like, that's cool. It was pretty crazy. What they ended up doing. But I think that there's like, I don't know if you, like these are all, like you said, there's hundreds of things that just come out every day, but there's this still image, but did you hear the Dragan? Did you see the Dragan? It's like a GAN's a generative adversarial network, which is a type of AI that kind of okay, so really brief explanation. It's like if you get 2 AIs, one is like the person that makes the artwork, the fake artwork, and one of them is the one that checks to see if it's a fake artwork. So you keep feeding it like real artwork, and the other one tries to make a fake. And every time it gets feedback and it says, no, that's not real, it's fake. And the one that makes the fakes gets better and better and better and better until he gets to the point where they can't tell the difference. And that's a GAN. That's roughly how a GAN works. And that's been huge in making these massive neural nets. It's not the large language models, but it's been massive in making neural nets and making fake images. And this one was basically, it was like, if you Google it, it's drag as in if you drag and drop, and then GAN, GAN, and it's like you can like literally just, if you want to turn a person's face to a smile, you just like pull up on the corners of the mouth, but it turns to like a perfect smile. It's like how that person would look smiling. If you go to a website called, GANs are really cool. If you go to a website called thispersondoesnotexist.com, and if you keep refreshing the page, it just makes a new person every time. It's just a fake person, and it looks absolutely like a real person.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And so so these are like these are called GANs, and they're called generative adversarial networks. That they're a type of neural net, a type of AI basically, but they're very clever for and these could be huge in the long run for building very complex AIs. The idea of the AI teaching itself to do something that the human doesn't understand. You know what I mean? Like that's potentially there. Like, and it massive for things like identifying cancers in biopsies and stuff like that. There's loads of great uses that they could potentially go down that are huge, because they can basically go, here's a real one, here's one with cancer, here's one that doesn't. When you get to the point where you can identify the ones that always have cancer in them, you're obviously a lot more accurate than a human, if that makes sense. So clever stuff like that, like so
that's
really
awesome.
But if you look at that, the Dragan, I think that gives an idea of how easy it's going to be to edit images in the long run.
I have taken so many notes.
Yeah.
These websites down.
Yeah.
We'll just dropping stuff in. That's what I love about the AI conversation. It's like you can talk to anybody and find like 3 things you didn't hear. Like you thought you heard of things, and you're like, oh no, I haven't. There's more somewhere. Eventually, it'll be like this AI will build the plane for you. And so But guys, listen, this has been fantastic, and I'm super excited about what you're doing with MySchoolAI and just the direction you're going. So keep going in that direction. I'm really excited about what you guys are doing, because I think, as Will and I have talked about before in the podcast, there's a lot of conversations in education. Everybody goes from one direction of I love AI to like Arnold Schwarzenegger's coming to kill us with AI. But I think you guys have a good direction
joke.
I wasn't, but you did. So anyway, so I love it. Keep going forward with that in that direction, and I'm excited to see. I will be listening into your Why AI podcast to see what's coming out of there. So really appreciate your time, guys, and I'm sure we'll be able to talk again.
Very much. I'd love to.
Be great.
Brilliant. Fantastic.
Very cool.
Josh, I really think that we should change the podcast format. I think you should maybe I probably use my room. We'll make this a little pod, and we'll record side by side, because their setup is awesome.
Yes, they're like soundproof. They got like a little. It took me back to like the recording days when somebody would jam you into like the sketchy booth that they were like, "Don't worry,
as a drummer,
it'll sound great at the end." No, it was great though. They came prepped for this. Now knowing that they were doing a podcast, it made more sense. At first, I'll be honest, Steve and Harry, if you're listening to this, when I saw you jump on, I was like, wow, serious commitment. Podcast.
They're just coming on for one night. Wow. Okay. Okay. They have a podcast. That makes more sense. Aesthetics aside, though, thank you, Steve. Thank you, Harry, for taking the time with us to give us a little bit more insight into what MySchoolAI is doing and what you're preparing to do. Like, this is actually part of why we want to do this AI series, the opening AI series, because there's a lot that's happening right now. We are reacting. We are doing things because of OpenAI, because of ChatGPT. But even this work that Harry and Steve and the team there are doing, right? Like, they've got some things working already. There are things available to teachers, and they're already thinking of the next thing, the next best thing that should be coming out of this. Not just let's create some content. Well, holy smokes, what does it look like to have an AI teaching and learning assistant? What could it be to have AI be a part of the teaching process, not just creating lesson plans, content, helping you with emails, drafting, whatever, right? Like actually being a part of the teaching and learning process. I'm really thankful they have the vision to not only be like, all right, let's capitalize, let's take advantage of this moment to like make something, make it useful, but also be predicting where this should go and how they can be a part of the process.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think what interests me most about Steve and Harry and MySchoolAI is I love what they're doing now. Like, I like that they're trying to find ways to make it easier for teachers to engage well with AI and just figure out how to get out of AI what they want, because we both know prompt writing and all that type of stuff can be more difficult when you're working with AI. But I'm actually more excited about the direction they want to go, which is essentially this AI assistant concept. Because like what we talked about with them in the episode, as a teacher, you're dealing with so many different students from so many different backgrounds who have different needs and different things that they're going to need to learn well. And it can be difficult as a teacher to deal with all of that kind of administrative stuff and in a classroom with, 20 something students trying to make sure that their needs are all being met well. That's a lot of work. And so thinking through how AI could be used to think about different ways people learn different topics and content and paths. I'm more hopeful that we could get to actually good technology getting us to good custom learning paths. Like we mentioned this in the podcast, but Will and I have talked about this a bunch. Every LMS, they have their core things, right? Like they have the core like assignment, discussion, quiz. They've always got some kind of other special quiz with a different name. That always confuses us. And then they've always got.
So that's too real. I've seen quiz and quiz 2.0. I've seen quizzes and assessments. Like every LMS is.
LMSs, if you're listening, Canvas, Schoology,
get it straight,
Moodle,
folks.
what the crap? Do you all go to the same conference where you decide we're going to do this? Like, anyway, they also all have some type of custom learning path system, right? Canvas calls it like mastery path, I think, or something along those lines. Schoology calls it something similar, right? It's always like path and like master or success or, you know, whatever other fun word we've got. Here's the deal. I correct me if I'm wrong, Will, but my opinion of them is pretty much all of them don't do it well. They all are honestly sometimes
that's a
more
yes from me,
work
Josh,
than it takes to get it set up, because it's just not set up well. I have more hope that AI can actually be something that could do that better, because it can be responsive to students' needs. And with the guidance of a caring human professor or teacher involved in the process, I think that could be a really good combination to meet students' needs more regularly without overworking the teacher.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yes. If we could reduce the workload on our teachers and increase the efficiency, like at the same time, reduce the administrative burden on our teachers, to increase their learning and teaching and learning output. Like, I believe so many teachers who love teaching, are good at teaching, burn out or leave the profession because of the peripheral, the auxiliary stuff, the administrative stuff that's not about actually changing the child's life, not about actually being a part of their students' learning experience and 100%. Teaching them. And so many of them want to teach more. I love teaching. I would not be doing this podcast if we didn't, but I would also not be in my career if I felt like I could make a decent wage and give everything I have to teaching and not lose myself in it, right? I believe if I took what I'm good at doing, what I love teaching, and went and did it as a career, I would not survive in it. I don't think I have the chaps to deal with the administrative burden, the crap from parents, the political stuff that gets involved with it. I couldn't do it. I love teaching, but I couldn't do that stuff. So I've gone into this para-education, this para-teaching kind of lifestyle, because it still gives me the opportunity to improve others, help others, be a part of teaching others, and hopefully have a downstream effect, because I know I can't be in the classroom. I just can't stomach that stuff because it gets in the way. It's so stupid. So random soapbox, sorry. If AI can help reduce that, yes, let's do it. We need more tools, more teams like MySchoolAI who are going to get involved and help make that easier for our teachers. Let's give them more space to teach and less time doing lesson planning, doing the technical stuff, writing assessments, right? We want to make sure that it's as useful for them as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's a powerful tool for that, and I have a lot of hope for what that could look like after talking to both to Steve and Harry and kind of what MySchoolAI is doing. So we said it when we were talking to Steve and Harry. We said it since then, but very much check them out, MySchoolAI. Like they shared in the episode, there's a couple different ways you can get in contact with them and get access to the tool. We'll post some of that stuff on our website in the episode page. But check them out. I think there's this whole Opening AI series is all about us kind of, we've joked about it. It was a play on OpenAI for those who don't get it, like my wife. But it's also this idea of just kind of like pulling back the curtain and trying to take a look at AI and not get into the super technical stuff or how AI is set up, but take a look at what the impact could be for education and can be for education. And I think that's very much a place that I'm hopeful that we could see more and more of that happening. Not AI replacing the teacher, but becoming an assistant and tool for the student and teacher to be able to take some burden off of them and give them space to do what they should be doing and do well. At the end of the day, that's what I think it looks like to harness technology in education, is being able to use it so that the teacher can do what the teacher should be doing. Yes. That takes work and that's difficult at times, but I think AI could definitely be a step forward in the right direction if we use it well and we're careful about how we use it.
Yeah. Yep. All right, folks, that's 106 in the wraps. Thank you for coming along this series with us. We've got 107 ahead of us and got a couple more episodes of the series. We're very excited for that. In 107, we're going to get into like, what's it like? Okay, we got ChatGPT on the mind. How do we prompt AI? How do we actually use it? Like, what do we do to be better at working with generative models, generative tools like this? We don't have a tool picked at the moment, but we'll figure it out. There'll be a tool for episode 107 as well. That's how this works, folks. This is a hobby, not a profession. There's nobody QAing us, and if we didn't QA ourselves, it doesn't happen. As always, please do find us on Twitter and YouTube at High Tech Podcast, right? That is our handle. So you can @ us in those ways, like, subscribe, follow, retweet, post. I don't know. Do the things, please. We love that. It really helps us out. It gives us some encouragement to keep doing this. Email us, inbox@hightechpod.us. You have an idea, you want to come on, you want to be a guest, you have a tool we should check out. You don't have to be a guest, right? But if you know a tool we should do, send it to us. What you got, brother?
We do have an app for next week. It's just confused because we moved episodes around a bit to accommodate some things.
Thank you.
Next week, we will also be talking about Midjourney and Adobe Firefly. That was what we got moved around a little bit. I'm going to fix that now as we're talking, but next week we will also be talking about Midjourney and Adobe Firefly as we talk about how to write prompts.
Thank you, my friend. Head to our website. Every episode, every time, has a page with resources to help you get started with our tool, to learn more about the person, whatever we're doing. There's an episode page for every single episode we do that you can use as a resource for your work. Please do share that with friends so they can get connected with the podcast and join the community. All right. We've got episodes done. We've got episodes planned.
Yep.
Right? Thank you again, as always, for joining us for another week as we continue to learn what it looks like to harness technology, whether it's in the physical, virtual, technical, functional, corporate, classroom, whatever it is. Until next time, we'll see you.
See ya.